Quite an introduction. I'm a late addition to the program. So. Thank you for being here. Are you Jim Raby's son? I used to go out, when I first started out with STI, I would go out and visit customers. And a lot of times, I got a bigger greeting than most people that were making a sales call somewhere would get. A lot of times it was a defense contractor and one of the big names you hear of all the time, and there'd be a vice president down to meet me at the door. And the first question I heard, are you Jim Raby's son? And I knew from the way they asked, I'd heard from Dad at home and I'd heard from Mom at home, that sometimes there's questions that you really don't want to answer, because I wasn't quite sure if they were going to hug me, although I knew there was quite a much better chance that they were going to slug me for something. And but eventually I would acknowledge it, and then that vice president or whoever it was would politely let me know that, your dad was in here a couple of years ago and he closed our plant down. And I would start looking for a window or a door or something, and kind of, I knew things weren't going to go that way. As I got a little more experienced, they would still ask that question, but I learned to ask, okay, what happened? And if they were still speaking to me, they would say, we weren't building things the way that we were supposed to build them, and he called us on that and tried to fix it, and he couldn't fix, and we didn't fix it, and he didn't think the government was getting their money's worth, and he just shut us down. And then they would say, we probably deserved it, and he was really nice about it. And then we got along okay. So he was doing his job, and we actually liked the guy. It was kind of the way they would always end. But Dad taught me so many things. I learned from experiences like that. Simple things. Be a good person. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a restaurant with Mom or Dad, and they would see a military family sitting over here, somebody in uniform, and they would let the waitress know, put their bill on ours. And it wasn't that we had so much money or anything like that. It was just, he appreciated what these people were doing. Most of the time, they never knew who paid for their meal. He's done that for military, he's done that for police, he's done that for firemen, he's done that for just people that look like they could use some help. And as one of the earlier speakers said, he never took any credit for that. And I mean, that was just how we were taught to do things. And I hope I can continue on doing that. He talked to people. I remember sitting I've spent many long hours sitting beside of them on airplanes. And I remember we set out on one trip going somewhere, and there was a person sitting in the window seat. Dad had the middle seat, and the person in the window had green spiked hair and all kinds of piercings connected by various methods to various other piercings. And it wasn't really the person you usually saw my dad with. But by the end of the flight, Dad had quizzed that person on why they were doing that, and it was like they were best buddies. And I never would have expected that going in, but Dad could get along with anybody when he wanted to. Something Doug mentioned, something Greg mentioned, something Kathy mentioned, and Diana mentioned was he loved working with young people. I've had a couple of emails since all the announcements have been going out that just how much people appreciated Dad, because when they were 20 years old, he talked to them like they were an adult. And they said not everybody did that. Not everybody treated him as an adult. And that the people really appreciated, and it helped them grow up. He loved to mentor people. He loved to take in primarily young engineers, young professional people, and just work with them and share his knowledge. Sometimes, as Doug could mention, or Greg could mention, actually all of y'all could mention, sometimes he wasn't as friendly with you when you came back with something, but he was always happy to help, and he always wanted to develop people. Taught me to be a good father, and you know, that's something I've got to work on. I mean, I got an almost 20-year-old that you've heard a lot about today, but Dad traveled a lot. There's nothing more valuable than time. You know, in pretty much any circumstance, we all have a limited amount of time. Mom's looking at me like I've already run over my time, but you know, you only have so much time, and he worked hard, as Kathy mentioned. And as I was growing up, he missed a lot of things. But he also, when we would travel, especially when I was younger, he would have to be in California Monday. He'd come home on Thursday, and Mom and I'd pile into the car, and we'd drive to California. That was before lots of laws that exist today, which meant that I traveled to California many, many times standing in the floorboard of the back seat between the two front seats, if I wasn't laying in the window back behind. But I think that standing in the floorboard of a Corvair is why I'm shaped like I am. It's kind of, it wasn't very tall, it was quite wide, and you know, they say fish will grow to fit whatever they're in. And I don't know if it works with people, but there's a good chance that it did in this case. But just one example, like I said, Dad traveled a lot, and there were things that I did that he couldn't get to. And you know, a lot of times he'd tell me, you know, I really feel bad when I'm going to miss this. My freshman year in high school, I was out at Sparkman, and I was on the football team. I think my position officially was called left blocking dummy. And although I could have blocked it I was a blocking dummy wherever they needed it, really. But he had told me there was a game he was going to miss for travel somewhere. So, you know, I was okay with that. I was disappointed he wasn't going to be there. But so anyway, the night of the game comes. I go out on the field. I'm actually a wide receiver, so if you're a wide receiver, the first offensive play of the game, we go out and you look over and you see where the ball is, and you look over to where the first down marker is, and you make sure you're on your side. I mean, it's just because you're not one of those right there by the ball, so you got to line yourself, orient yourself. So I look at the ball, and you know, I'm nervous about what I'm supposed to be doing and all of that. And I look over at the first down marker, and there's my dad holding the marker and just grinning. I don't know how, I don't know where he came from, but somehow he got there. I don't know what else happened that game, but that might have been my football highlight. He used to do a lot of travel on the East Coast, and this was when we lived at China Lake. That Kathy didn't quite tell how beautiful China Lake was, but well, let's not talk about China Lake. But anyway, China Lake's up in the middle of the desert. It was put up there by the United States Navy when they were working on the atomic bomb, so if it accidentally blew up, nobody really cared. And it hasn't really changed a lot. But it's a couple hours north of Los Angeles, and my dad used to go work on the East Coast, and we would come down, Mom and I would come down, and we would meet him at the airport when he'd come into Los Angeles. So now just imagine, and I know what it feels like now because I do it. Although I don't live in California, I know what it feels like. You work all week on the road, long hours, you work a half day, you get on an airplane in DC, you fly to Los Angeles. Due to the magic of time zones, you're getting there not much later time-wise than what you left. You know, maybe you leave at noon, you get there at 1 or whatever, because of the time zones. We would meet him at Los Angeles after he's done all of that, and we would drive another hour and a half down to an Angels baseball game. And we would sit there for 3 hours watching a baseball game before we made the 3-hour drive home. And he was always seemed happy to do that, never said anything about it, and now I look back on it about what kind of sacrifice that was to do those kind of hours. That's, you know, that is just not something that comes easy. Dad taught me so much about business and technical things. I mean, I had a lot of emails the last few days about, your dad taught me about this, your dad taught me this, I was in one of his classes and I learned this. You know, he spoke to all kinds of organizations, SMTA, IPC, you know, all kinds of other places, but he also used to teach seminars, and I would travel around with him on these seminars. So all these people are telling me they heard him speak and they learned so much from one seminar. I sat through literally hundreds of those, and every one of them I learned something new. I didn't necessarily know it at the time that I was learning something new, but I always did. We've always told people in business that we made a good team because he was the good, smart, technical guy and I was the business guy. But I have to admit, since I'm standing here in front of Dad and there's a flag and all of that, I have to be honest with you and say he taught me everything about business that I know. So, you know, it wasn't a business and technical thing. He was smart, and he conveyed that in ways that made me think I was doing something, but you know, was incredible at that. He's the reason STI exists, and he's the reason STI is going to flourish in the future. And because he's taught everybody sitting on this side of the room, he's taught us so much, and we will do well going forward. Another thing that I'm thinking about this, I've got to be better at, is he taught me to be a good husband. And Sheila and I have been married 22 plus years, and she's doing the math, and I'm glad to see she's struggling with it too. But about 24 years ago or so, she met Mom and Dad for the first time. And it was, you know, afterwards, you know, I said, so how'd you like them? And she said, they were so cute. They were, you know, they're old, but they're holding hands. Now, keep in mind, they're old 20-something years ago, which means they were a little bit younger than I am now. But they were so cute because they were holding hands. You know, the last 2 weeks, Dad was in the hospital, and Mom came home in 13 nights. I think Mom came home twice to get clean clothes. Never left his side, and most of the time she was holding his hand.
That's right.
And that did not change over the years. If anything, it got better over the years. He also, the last night that he was in the hospital, he sang to her, and which I can never be that good of a husband because I have instructions never to sing. But Greg, I know now we can get you to come. But anyway, like I said, he taught me so much. Judge a person by who their friends are. And look around this room, and you see why Dad had such a happy life. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for being part of his life and our life. We'll miss him, but we'll never forget him. His last request to me, and the one good thing about him being in the hospital was, you know, we had many what we thought might be last conversations. One of them, he looked at me and said, "Am I dying?" And, you know, he had to look at it back and say, "I think you are." And he was okay with that. But his last request, and what I want to ask you for help on making sure of this, is that we take care of Mom.
That's right.
And she's had somebody holding her hand for 58 years, singing to her, and I'll do the best I can, but I need your help. But in closing, I'm still asked every once in a while, actually probably once a month, if not more, are you Jim Raby's son? And now, and it's been this way for several years, whether I think I'm going to get hugged or slugged with the answer, I proudly answer, yes, sir, I am. And thank you, Dad. Thank you all for being here.
Amen.